You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account, from NVIDIA to VIX and everything in between. If it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, let's get down to business for your Hot Options Report for an absolutely wild Friday, November 7th. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Reminding you, make sure you subscribe to the full network. Get all the great shows coming at you. And, of course, if you want to get those exclusives, pro Q&As, options oddities, giveaways, a lot of great stuff, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. And while you're checking things out online, make sure if you're listening to this show, you need to be following along thehotoptionsreport.com. It's all there in the URL, brought to you by our friends over there at Quick Options. They're taking all the cool stuff they've been doing for years on the futures options side of the fence, some groundbreaking stuff nobody else is doing, and I twisted their arm, and they're finally bringing it to the world of equity options. So your Teslas, your VIX, your SPY, your NVIDIA, all that fun stuff you folks like to sling, and a whole bunch more, and they're giving you this data for free. It's wild. It's better than a lot of the stuff you're going to get at most of your brokers. TheHotOptionsReport.com is the place to go. And then once you're there, you click around Quick Options. A lot of great, cool stuff. You literally can't beat it. TheHotOptionsReport.com. Let's get down to business now, like we said, for an absolutely wild day out there in the markets. We started off selling off pretty hard in most of the major indices, ended up closing up slightly in the S&P, fought their way all the way back to the green. Uncle Mike and his cabal of bulls strikes again, buying up everything in sight, listeners. Let's kick things off in VIX, shall we? VIX cash having a wild day, getting north of the 20 handle, listeners, and closing today actually down slightly at a 1908. Absolutely wild day on the vol front. Wild day in the markets. Putting up 1.12 million contracts, so a wild day in VIX as well, exceeding that already lofty ADV of right around 950,000 contracts. What was the hot option on a very hot day in VIX land today? 78,000 of the 18 puts going up for 34 cents in VIX. You like those? Are you a buyer of those? Or are you sold to you? I guarantee you like them a lot better at the end of the day than you did at the start of the day, listeners. Just absolutely wild stuff out there. Let's keep rolling out to the SPY. Like we said, SPY managing to close up slightly on the day. Just wild stuff after an absolutely rock'em sock'em robots day where they were off over 1% at one point. Ended up closing up 0.01%. 670.97 is where SPY went out, listeners. And the hot option, again, putting up an absolutely wild number as well. 11.6 million contracts on the tape for SPY today, blowing past the ADV of about 9.7 million contracts. The hot option, 431,000 of these 670 calls. 42 cents for these bad boys. Ended up going out pretty much in the money, so not a bad do if you rode them through the close. Wild stuff, again, in the SPY. Let's keep going to the S. S, same deal. S closing 67.2880, up about 0.13% on the day. Putting up 5.33 million. That's pretty much a million more contracts than we expect. The ADV, 4.33 million. The hot option out there today, 127,000 of these 6,700s. Average price for these, $6.85. Obviously, the cash going out well north of that. If you bought these and rode them through the close, you got a decent scoop. Seemed kind of crazy to be paying for upside earlier today, but if you did that and you fought your way to the close, you ended up looking all right. Out to small caps, were they lighting it up? The answer out there was also yes. Wild action out there, putting up nearly 2.5 million contracts, 2.42 million contracts against an ADV of 1.8 million. Small caps closing 241.61 in IWM, again up nearly 0.5% on the day. The hot option, 98,000 of the Nove 230 puts. Average price for these, nearly $2. Now, we've been talking about this strike for a while. They're looking a heck of a lot better yesterday and this morning than they are right now, so maybe some folks are getting the heck out of Dodge on these. There's potential for closing here. But we shall see, listeners, as we keep on rolling. Out to the Qs. The Qs, one of the few major indices still closing in the red. The tech wreck dragging down the NASDAQ. 609 3/4 is where the Qs went out. Off, like we said, about a little over 1/3%. Putting up 7.4 million contracts against an ADV of just a little over 5. About 5.1 million. So blowing away the volume numbers in the Qs today. The hot option out there, pretty much exactly 250,000 of the par puts, the 600 puts. Average price for these, $1.12. Those were looking great earlier this morning if you had those in your back pocket, listeners. Not so great towards the close, but still just an absolutely wild day. And you know what? Did all this yo-yo action, did that translate into a lot of single name options action? The answer, once again, is no. When things get very macro heavy, when people are focusing on massive sell-offs or massive rallies, they tend to forget the single names, and that's what happened again today. Only cost you 603,000 contracts to break into the top 10. That gets you to our old pal SoFi, climbing back from some of the losses it had earlier this week, gaining back a little over $1, almost 4% to close 28 1/4. Again, putting up 603,000 contracts. And the hot option out there, 20,000 of the 27 calls expiring today. Average price for these about 28 cents. So these went out pretty well. They went out nearly $1 to the good. So not a bad trade out there, listeners, if you rode these through the close. As we keep on rolling to number 9, it's our old pal, the Monster, a.k.a. MicroStrategy. Looking a lot smaller these days, even though it did gain back about 4 3/4, nearly 2% for good old strategy out there today. Putting up 845,000 contracts for the number 9 spot, listeners. And the hot option on a pretty hot day in MicroStrategy/strategy, 35,000 of the 250s. Now you might say, oh, not a great do, $3.77, but these are going out next week, listeners. So they bought themselves a little bit extra time. Let's see if we can hit that strike by next week, listeners, as we keep on rolling to number 8, the Amazonians, 244.41. That's where the stock went out today. Again, that's up about $1.33 or a little over 0.5% for the Amazonians, listeners. Putting up 852,000 contracts for the number 8 spot, and the hot option out there today, 50,000 of the 240 puts expiring today. Average price for these, 91 cents. So if you sold them, you're looking all right. If you bought these, you may have had some opportunities earlier in the session. They got down to 238 and about a half, so they were looking all right briefly. Hopefully you got the heck out of Dodge if you did buy them there. As we keep on rolling to number 7, our old pal Open, making it back into the top 10, putting up 893,000 contracts for the number 7 spot. Open closing pretty much unched on the day, which is wild, $6.56. The hot option out there, 62,000 of the 6 halves. So 656, if you paid more than 6 cents, unfortunately, not a great deal. And the average price was nearly 9 cents. So not exactly a winner, but on the flip side, you didn't lose much if you rode these through the close, listeners. And I have a feeling you probably had an opportunity to get rid of them at a better price. Maybe earlier in the session, we shall see. As we keep on rolling to number 6, it's the artist formerly known as Facebook. It's Meta. This one has been worrying it ever since their earnings. They've been coming for Meta. Coming in at number 6 today, 1.11 million contracts, closing 621.71, up about 2 3/4, so gaining back about 0.5% after just getting annihilated over the last week and change. The hot option out there, 49,000 of the par puts expiring today. Average price for these, $1.16. This was opening paper, so they were, if you bought these, they were betting on a complete wreck. And you know what? Meta did get down to 601 today, so 20-point rally in the second half of the session. So hopefully you sold these. If you bought them, hopefully you got out towards the low, listeners. As we keep on rolling to number 5, the fruit company. Apple, after bucking the trend earlier this week and rallying in the face of sell-offs, today selling off about a little over $1, about $1.33, or about 0.5%, closing 268.47. Coming in at the number 5 spot today, 1.17 million contracts. The hot option out there, almost 91,000. Of the 270 calls, average price for these about 73 cents. So, unfortunately, if you bought those, not exactly a winner, but they did get north of that on a little bit of a bounce earlier this morning, 272 and about a third. So, you had your opportunity this morning to get rid of those. As we keep on rolling, the number 4, AMD. AMD not exactly feeling their oats today, selling off a little over $4, or about 1.75%, closing 233.54, putting up 1.18 million contracts. We're the number 4 spot, and the hot option out there today, 105,000. Of the 225 puts, average price for these, 68 cents. Those are not looking great if you bought them. There's a chance paper might have been selling some of these. It was opening paper, though. The low today was 224.64, so 225 was relevant for a brief period in AMD. As we keep on rolling to number 3, Palantir. Palantir gaining back a little bit today, gaining back nearly $3, or about 1.2%, closing 177.93, putting up 1.34 million contracts. The hot option out there, 83,000. Of the 170 puts, listeners, average price for these, 92 cents. That's wild. But then again, they did get down to 168 intraday today, listeners. So those were actually in the money by over $1 at one point. So made that 92 cents maybe look kind of attractive. As we keep on rolling to number 2, it's Tesla. They finally approved the $1 trillion pay package, and the stock took a hit, listeners. 429.5 is where it went out, off about 16 1/3, or about 3 2/3% today, putting up nearly 4 million contracts. So a very active day, but not enough to take the top spot. That's wild. The hot option on a hot day in Tesla, 172,000. Of the 435 calls, average price for these, nearly $2. You know, we were whipping and sawing all over the place in Tesla today. So if you bought these, you had time to get out of them. If you sold them, you had to sweat a little bit, but you also looking pretty good at the end of the day. As we keep on rolling to the big dog yet again, it's NVIDIA, listeners. 5.5 million contracts on the tape. Almost a $10 range in NVIDIA today. 188.32 to the upside, 178.91 to the downside out there. So wild range in NVIDIA today, closing 188.15. So pretty much at the upper end of that range. Listeners, actually almost unched on the day, which is kind of wild. The hot option on a very hot day in NVIDIA today, 381,000. Of the 185s, average price for these, 66 cents. They went out worth $3.15. So it looks like a pretty decent trade to me. And that's going to do it for an absolutely wild end of week hot options report. Hope you had a great week. Hope you had a great trading day. Remember, if you missed anything on the network this week, it's all available there for you. Just make sure you subscribe to the full network. And of course, make sure you're checking out the hot options report, listeners, if you want to dig deeper into any of this flow and a whole heck of a lot more we don't have time to squeeze into the show. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. We'll see you back on Monday. Another episode of the Hot Options Report.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.